Howdy friends, Tyler Grant here at jamplay.com. Great to be with you on a Thursday. It is a lovely springtime afternoon here in Colorado. I hope you all are enjoying your nice weather wherever you are, and I hope you're staying home, staying safe, doing everything you got to do during these times. Well, we are moving right along with our country guitar solo of the week, and this one is getting into some chicken picking. Now, chicken picking, people often ask what this means. Well, it's a pretty loose term, but it really comes down to trying to sound a little bit like a chicken. That kind of thing. So we haven't quite done a lot of hybrid picking yet in this series, and we haven't done too many specific techniques related to chicken picking. So we're going to basically talk about that for most of this lesson, and I'll also teach you this little solo. So the concept of hybrid picking, now it's not necessary to use a pick at all when you're chicken picking, but it does help to get your fingers involved because you actually have to kind of slap at the string a little bit to get some of those popping kind of chicken squawk kind of noises, you know what I mean? You can do it with a pick, but there's this kind of percussive element that we get when we incorporate the fingers. Now, a lot of real great chicken picking style country players these days just use their fingers. Because you can really slap with both your thumb and your fingers. A lot of players, like great ones like Brent Mason, will use a thumb pick. I just use a pick and do this hybrid technique. So why don't we do a little exercise before we get into the actual example. Go ahead and try this. Play the D string with your pick, just open, and then the G string with your middle finger of your picking hand, what we call the M. M as in middle finger. And do like this. Try that with me. Thumb, middle, thumb, middle, thumb. Okay? That's what hybrid picking is all about. It's pretty basic. Just an alternation between the pick and the fingers. So now, with the D string, pick on the D string, and your A, what we call the A finger, or the ring finger, annular, it also comes from Spanish classical terminology. Now go thumb, A finger on the B string, okay? So thumb, A finger, thumb, A finger. Go ahead and jump right in. Thumb, A finger, pick, A finger, pick, A, pick, A. Okay? Now, this is what we're going to get into in this kind of solo eventually. Do the pick and both fingers. And this time try to really, I'm going to turn my volume down a little bit, and try to really slap at those open strings. It's okay if you get kind of clangy. That's kind of what we're going for, actually. Okay? So that's the technique. And I can play with a hybrid style, really doing any kind of application. Watch as I I'll noodle around and just alternate the pick and the fingers. And that's how a lot of people get these kind of like. You see how with the picking hand it's pretty efficient. Even those kind of licks. Are achieved by this hybrid picking. And they're actually easier than you think. So let's go ahead and get into this example. Chris, if you want to go ahead and pull up the page. We just have a kind of a, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a little 8-bar solo. And this goes over a G chord rhythm. It goes over a 1, 4, 5 rhythm in the key of G, which is like G to the C chord, to the D chord, back to G. So let's just strum through the rhythm, just to kind of loosen up and get used to the sound of this, what the track is gonna be. So we'll do just a little boom strum rhythm on each chord, okay? So starting with G, 1, 2, ready, and go, and here's the C, D, back to G, one more time. And if you're doing a TikTok, you'd be like, palm muting and kind of just replicating that same type of strum. Some people might opt to do the bar chords instead. Easier to control. That would be like TikTok in the bass line or shadowing the bass. Okay, so let's get into this solo here. We're looking at the lead sheet, and you're seeing when you're reading this kind of notation, it's tricky because of the fingering assignments, which are totally a suggestion, okay? I'll show you some of the important ones as we go. But also the little bend symbols and things like that. It's really hard to get the meaning of a notation like this without hearing it and seeing it done. So we'll just take this one piece at a time. And it's really broken down as a series of licks. And the first one is this one. So those X's, that means you're deadening the string. So I've got my third finger here on the 5th fret of the D string. That's going to be the first note I play. But I begin with this little figure with the string deadened, so I'm just touching it with my third finger and not pressing it down. And I have a M finger, middle finger, pick, middle, like. So let's just try that together. It's like a triplet kind of thing, so it would be. So I'll count you in, ready, go, and up. Middle, pick, middle, middle, pick, middle, middle, pick, middle. You're not going to be repeating it like that. It's actually easy to get once you get the feel for that. But just practice that a few times on that dead string. And then what happens is we go like this. Okay? So there's your chicken sound right there. So we got that little triplet on the dead string, and then the pick plays that 5th fret right there with your 3rd finger, and then your 1st finger will play the 3rd fret of the G string, and you'll pop that with your M finger here and give it an ever so slight bend. Not even a bend of a half step, like I wrote quarter step on there. Just to get that bit of swank on it. And then you repeat that again. Okay? So that little figure just repeats 3 times in a row. So let's just do this together. And just loop it. A little slower than that. So I'll count a 1, 2, 3, and a go. Couple more times. So it's a real percussive kind of feel there. Some of those notes you want them to be really short, especially that first one you play. And those are both short. The next one kind of rings out. Right? Get hung up on the fingernail sometimes. So that's your last measure. Pretty easy. So this is very easy material. This is like what you might learn in like Blues 101 or, you know, rock and roll soloing 101. It's all about the feel, and it's all about getting those real percussive elements to it. So I'll play that measure, the first 2 measures again, like. And on that last stroke, I actually use an upstroke of the pick. I'll go the thumb middle, and then thumb, or I should say pick middle, then pick up. I'm sorry. Pick, this is all written on the page, but just to explain, pick M, and then pick M, upstroke. Just because I can't really get that M finger twice in a row so fast, especially once this gets moving. So, in other words, I'll kind of talk you through this one more time. On the notation, it's tricky because it puts the fingers of the picking hand up on the actual notes. It doesn't put them down in the tablature. So, when you don't see a pick mark on this particular score, when you don't see a pick stroke above the tab there, look up and you'll see the M or the A finger written in. And again, like I said, those are all suggestions. You can use, some people prefer to use the A finger instead of the M finger. You know, Jerry Garcia did not even have an M finger, so he would hybrid pick like that. Those are just a matter of preference. I like to use the M when I'm on a close string to where the pick is, and the A if I'm a little further away. I'll even use the pinky if I'm what I call pinching a chord, grabbing all the notes at once. So anyway, I'll coach you through these first 2 measures, the picking hand fingering, okay? So I'll play it 1, 2, 3, 4, M, thumb, M, thumb, M, thumb, M. M, thumb, M, M, thumb, M, pick, M, pick, M, upstroke. So you get the first one. That last one is pick, M, upstroke, down. And that's just the easiest way that I found to play it. Okay? So let's go ahead. Cool. We're going to take some questions here in a minute, but let's just get through this first couple licks, the first couple measures, just to get this lick down, because this is kind of the important one. And everything else you do can kind of be based on getting this technique down. Okay? So here we go. From the top, we'll go really, really slow, just those first two bars. A 1, a 2, ready, and a go. All right, let's try that one more time. 1, 2, ready, and a go. All right. Cool. Let's try it maybe a little bit quicker. And if you're not quite there yet, just you'll listen and hear it in context. A 1, 2, ready, and a go. All right. Cool. So be sure to send in your questions. I'm going to throw this phone over here because I have to leave it on to control the camera. And I get texts every now and then. People don't realize that we are going live at this particular time. So the next measure, we've got a D chord. So that we're going to use your third finger, and with a downstroke you slide from the 2nd fret of the D string up a whole step to the 4th fret. And then with your first finger, play the 2nd fret of the G string. And then either 1st or 2nd finger, I'd probably prefer to use the 2nd finger here, do a little bend 2 times in a row. So it's a little kind of a half step bend. And then another bend and release. Then the open string. And then we go and we do the same thing down here, 5th fret of the low E string with your 3rd finger, same little half step bend, and then a bend and release, and that lands you with the low G. Okay? So those measures, the 3rd and 4th full measures, when we go to the D chord, sounds like this. Okay? And that is the basic version. Okay? So let's try that together really slow. Ready, and a slow E, and a... So once you get this whole chicken picking thing down, you can play it like this. You can throw those same little dead string. And I might go like throw in a little dead string in the middle of the notes. Just for a little bit more of that extra percussive kind of chicken picking thing. Here's a question. Fingers on my right hand get kind of sore plucking the strings. It just is a matter of toughening up the fingertips. Yeah. Just got to toughen up those fingertips. It's the calluses, just like in your fretting hand. I have fingernails, short fingernails, and, I kind of have these for like, the same as a classical player. I did classical in college, and I've always kept my nails the same because I can apply that to basically any style of guitar. And this kind of style does kind of chew up the nails a little bit. Some players use just a straight fingertip, and that's totally cool. That's like really great tone. Players like Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits. Who was I thinking of? Jim Messina, right? Loggins and Messina. He did a lot of this kind of fingertip style, like real kind of like real chicken picking kind of guitar guy. People don't realize that about Jim Messina. And Brent Mason and most of the modern players have a bit of a nail to get a little bit more of a pull on it. Johnny Hyland is a guy you should definitely check out. But it doesn't matter if you have a nail or not. Some of these players actually get acrylic nails on there so they don't get shredded up too much. I get away with my regular nails because they're pretty strong and I maintain them pretty well. But yeah, you will get that soreness, and I get that whenever I switch over to bass for a while. If I start playing bass too much, I will actually get a blister and then eventually get those calluses going again. So yeah, you just got to play through the pain. There. Okay, cool. Well, keep sending in your questions. We'll keep moving along here. And after we get done with this, now we're on the beginning of the third line of the solo, and we've got a quick little. That's a quick little slide from your position where your first finger is. Now you take your third finger on the 5th fret where you did that, slide it up a whole step from there, and then with either the M or the A finger, play with your first finger on the 5th fret of the D string, and then right back down with that slide on the low E. And that's the first half of the solo, so that little finishes up that first half. So here's the entire first half in context. Okay, let's try that together really, really slow. 1, 2, 3, and a go. And 4, and okay, I've got a dead. I do Friday night concerts on my Facebook page, and this last Friday was so hot. I just completely killed my strings because I was sweating on them so much. If you want to start playing country music but aren't familiar with anything but strumming, should you start with hybrid or finger picking? Well, this you're going to have to do some hybrid picking for this style. I would say reference my Classic Country Chops. I believe it's called Classic Country Chops series on Jam Play, which is basically a country guitar method from scratch. That I cover proper picking technique for individual notes and also get into hybrid picking. So there's options there to explore as you get into that course. But, you're going to want to do some of these little exercises like I showed you. Because it's not really that difficult, and it's not much of an extension from regular, sort of flat pick style playing. Okay, so now let's play that whole first half of the solo. along with the rhythm track. How about that? So let's do the slowest rhythm track we got, and you're going to hear how this lines up with the chord changes. Now, realize it's going to sound really bluesy. Okay, here we go. A 1, a 2, a 3, and go. How'd you do? Want to try it one more time? Okay, let's try that one more time. A 1, 2, 3, and go. So don't worry if you're not getting every one of those little the little dead string clicks. It's fine. That's something that you get better at as long as you're getting the notes down and getting the proper feel of those bends. That's kind of the main thing here. Okay. So moving on. Here's another question real quick. Do you recommend using a compressor to help accentuate this kind of? Yeah, compressors certainly help this kind of sound. If you listen to some great examples, might be like listen to Conway Twitty's Tight Fitting Jeans and hear the guitar. It's like really spanking and slapping at the strings, and it's heavily compressed. Same with Don Williams, Do It Again. Say It Again. Say It Again, that's the song. Check out both of those songs for good examples of like really heavy compression, kind of chicken picking style. Compressors didn't really come into play that much though until the 70s, and you know, this solo is kind of emulating Roy Nichols from Merle Haggard and the Strangers, and he was doing this before compressor pedals. And I don't have a compressor plugged in right now, so you don't necessarily need it, but it is a fun tool. And on my pedal board, I have a little compressor that I'll use in certain situations. And I believe when we were doing the Classic Country Chops course on Jam Play, we weren't using the compressor. There might have been a little bit of compression on the patch we were using, but I did a recent lick pack. I'm not sure if it's up on the site yet, but we did a bunch of compression on that because we were doing a lot of kind of more like 70s, 80s, and more recent kind of sounds. But yeah, compressors are certainly fun, and you don't need much. Like if you get like a Dynacomp or I have an Exotic Effects SP, you know, you could crank them up and it's really going to squish the sound and make it really easy to pop these notes. But it squishes a lot of your tone out. So it's fun to play with. I usually kind of have it on a little in a subtle kind of way. Cool. Well, keep the questions coming. We'll answer some in a minute. Let's move on to the second half of the solo, which is the second bar, second measure of the third line. And what we're doing is the exact same thing we started with. So the simple country guitar solos, right? Take the same thing and play it again, just a little bit different. So this time we're going to go like this. So all we're doing is getting a double stop in there, meaning we're going to hold down 2 frets at the same time. Instead of just the 3rd fret of the G, now we got the 3rd fret of the G and the B strings. And we're going to pinch them, so to speak, or grab them both at the same time with our M and A fingers, middle and ring fingers. of the picking hand. And to get that slight bend, I'm actually I found it might be a little bit easier to push on that than to pull on it. So in other words, pulling this way or pushing this way kind of works a little bit easier. On the last one, I might pull it. Again, these are just kind of matters of preference, whatever's more comfortable to you. There's certain situations where I will insist that you either push a bend or pull a bend. In this one, it doesn't matter so much, but I think it's a little bit easier maybe to push it because you're not bending it all the way. You're just bending a little bit. So you just push up toward the thumb there. Okay, and then third finger obviously plays both of those notes on the 5th fret. So, and vibrato is all a matter of preference too. I generally put vibrato on a lot of notes just kind of out of habit. It kind of makes you ask yourself, am I doing that on purpose? Or does it just feel good on the fingers? These are the things we ask ourselves as guitarists. Ultimately, we want the sound that sounds the best. And I have the advantage of being a performing musician, so I can, listen to recordings of the show or listen to the album that I recorded or, watch the video, from last Friday night or whatever, and I will see... I'll hear things and say, well, maybe I should just keep that part a little more simple. You don't notice in real time always. Oftentimes we let our fingers kind of control what we're trying to do. But, all these things are fun questions to ask yourself as you go. Do I put a little vibrato on this note? Kind of sounds cool. Yeah, I'll do that. Or, nope, I just want it to be straight. Matters of preference. So let's try these two measures. It would be complete measures 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 of the whole thing. In other words, the pickup notes to the 2nd bar of the 3rd line, the 3rd system. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, and go. Definitely feeling the vibrato on that low note. Okay, let's do that one more time. I kind of forgot we were doing double stops. Do this a few times. Thumb and then the pinch of these 2 fingers. Notice how everything in my picking hand is going into the hand. And again, I get into this in much greater detail on the Classic Country Chops series. Eventually, you'll just get really good at that kind of exchange of the pick and the fingers. Okay? And, you can do this all with a pick. Again, I'm not going to tell you there's a right and a wrong way. You're not going to quite get the same sound, and you actually won't quite get the same efficiency of motion. It's easier to do it this way once you get it down. Okay, let's do those 2 measures again. Okay, we'll slow. 1, 2, ready, and a slow. Fun. So then moving on from there, the last 2 measures are kind of similar to how we ended the first half of the solo, but this time we're gonna go high. We were down here before. This time we're gonna go almost the same thing, one octave higher. So third finger plays the 5th fret of the B string, and bend it a whole step, and you're definitely going to push this one. And then M finger will grab that 5th fret of the high E string, and that'll be played with your pinky of your fretting hand. And then right. So that little X in the middle is just another one of those little quick little percussive things, and I'm indicating an upstroke. So downstroke, M finger, a quick click upstroke on the dead string, and then on the next downstroke, you bend that same note again, and this time release it, and land on the D note, 3rd fret of the B string. So that goes. Okay, let's try that lick just by itself. Ready, and a slow E, and okay. And then this next one is going to be 3rd finger plays the 5th fret of the G string, whole step, push bend. And then you kind of reach out with your pinky and grab that 6th fret. And you, with your M finger, kind of pluck it with your picking hand. And then, same thing there. Whole step bend, release. And where do you land? Right there on the root note, of course. So, this measure sounds like... And those bends, you know, I'm suggesting a whole step. If you want it a little more bluesy, I just kind of felt it a little more bluesy that time, and I bent it a little less, you know, more like a half step. So this is a whole step. Whole step. The last one I kind of just did a little more bluesy. So it's all up to you, whatever you're feeling. Ultimately, you want to gain control of your bends. Be able to hear a whole step and to hear a half step. And have those be nicely in tune. So obviously I use a lot of the thumb to leverage against the push bends, you know. You'll see guitar players do this a lot, even if they don't have a B string bender. That's a thing that some country players have. I don't myself, but you'll have a B string bender that you lever the string against. It's just, you know, I'm trying not to. Try not to move the neck too much. It's just a habit. It's just something you get from performing, you know, emphasizing notes, things like that. Can I do this without a nail? Yes. Yep. You can definitely use your fingertips. We were just talking about that. Jim Messina, Mark Knopfler, a bunch of great players who play right on the fingertips. You'll develop some calluses, and it's actually, in some cases, easier to kind of pop that string and slap it if you just have a fingertip. Every now and then, if I don't do my nails exactly right, I'll kind of catch a nail on there and it'll throw off my timing. Okay, so that measure, let's play it together. Okay, if you play that, that'll get you into any country band. Let's try this. Ready, and a slow, and... Okay, one more time. Ready, and a slow, and... Okay. Then the last measure is simply. Now I just played that with a pick. On the page, I'm indicating a pick, M, pick, A, M. That's kind of an arbitrary, it just kind of depends on how you feel when you get there. But on the page, it goes downstroke, M, downstroke, A finger, M finger, then downstroke. Okay, and you could just go with the pick too. Whatever you're feeling there. But I'm writing in those hybrid fingerings just to encourage you to work on that technique. And none of this really has as much to do with the timing as with the efficiency of playing these notes. So that's an interesting thing about hybrid style, is you're not always doing a downstroke on the downbeat and an upstroke on the upbeat like with flat picking style, where you're very consistently down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, ghost, up, etc. with the timing. Like notice we started with the M finger. So that's kind of a weird way to do it timing wise, but it's the easiest way to actually play that lick. And on the end, let's see. So that was as written. If I played it all with a pick, you just wouldn't quite get as much snap on some of those notes. So get in those hybrid picking notes when you can, basically, is what I'm saying. Just find whatever way is best for you to play this. If you follow my example note for note, it'll be just fine. But if you're feeling it some different way, try it that way. Okay, well, let's go ahead and play the last two measures. Okay, let's play that together. A ready and a slow and. One more time, just that bit. Ready and a slow and. All right, we're chicken picking now. Let's go ahead and play that with the track, the slow tempo, and then I'll take a couple questions. Here we go. You ready? Let's give it a go. The whole thing. 1, 2, 3, and go. Cool. All right. How'd you do? Let's try it one more time. From the top, same thing. One, two, ready, and go. I made it all the way to the end and missed the last note. That happens. Here's a question. Do you find this style works best with a bluesy sound when you can grab the minor pentatonic double stops? How does it work with a major pentatonic sound? Well, you got to stay tuned for next week because this is in 2 parts. This is Picking with the Chickens Part 1. Next week is Picking with the Chickens Part 2, where we're going to answer your question exactly. I wanted to start with this particular lick because this is the one to me that sounds the most like a chicken. Now, if I was to riff on this a little bit more, I'll demonstrate a little bit here in a minute. I will jam with the track and demonstrate some more of that. But sure, you know, if I start with this sound... I think ultimately there's going to be some blues in there. You can kind of base your language around major pentatonic sounds and major pentatonic licks. But those chickens are just low down in the muck, in the feed, and they're just feeling those bluesy sounds. So I think we got to get some of those in there to, you know, demonstrate chicken picking at least. Once you get the technique down, you can do whatever you want to with it. All right, let's try this with the track at the medium tempo, okay, mid-tempo. Let's try that whole example. Here we go. A 1, 2, ready, and go. That's fun. It sounds more like music at this point, right? The slow tempo is really hard to kind of hear the whole thing in context. So let's do that one more time. While we're at it, mid-tempo here, let's play the solo. A 1, 2, ready, and go. All right. Well, there it is. I'm going to go ahead and play it now with the faster rhythm track. It's not a whole lot faster. Go ahead and play this with me if you're up for it. If not, I'll just demonstrate. Here we go at 70 beats per minute. A 1, 2, ready, and go. Fun, huh? So a bit of gear stuff. Well, you know, a single coil type of guitar, a Strat or a Tele, is a good guitar to use for this kind of thing. Doesn't mean you can't use something with humbuckers. A lot of great country players use humbuckers as well. But this is kind of the sound, you know, the basic sound of it. A lot of these players actually play on lighter strings. I have 10s, a 10 through 40, 10 through 46 or 42, whatever a standard set of light gauge strings is, 10s. A lot of country players play on light strings, like 9s, or even lighter sometimes. And it's partly because you can get away with playing very lightly, and having that light string gets you a little bit of an easier time kind of slapping them against the fretboard. So a lot of the great, you know, country players get by on light strings for that reason. I'm still a 10s kind of player because this is not the only style that I play. I do lots of other stuff as well. And I can make that sound on these strings. Any heavier would be difficult. But if I was to go in and like do some kind of real idiosyncratic chicken picking kind of album or something, and that was what I was pursuing like full time, I would probably, you know, set my guitar up with a 9 gauge string. Otherwise, any other questions? I mean, we pretty much worked through this. I think maybe we should review the tick-tock rhythm just for a moment. I didn't write that out on this one. We've covered it in most of the previous lessons, and we'll continue to talk about tick-tocking, the rhythm part. But here's how you would do it on a G chord, an open G chord. Now, it's based on the boom strum, which is... low string and then the D string. That's your 5, 5, okay? And if you're tick-tocking this, remember there's a middle note. There's always a middle note. I would do, I'd hold down the chord like normal and palm mute the strings and play the low E string, the D, and then the A string, D string. That would be my tick-tock rhythm on a G chord. And then on a C chord, your boom strum is this. So this more aligns with what you're doing on the boom strum because you're simply just going... And, you know, I think the easiest way to solve the problem, the D chord, you could totally just do that. That's probably the easiest thing to do. So in other words, play a D chord, boom strum, and the tick-tock will be... Okay? So why don't we let's just tick-tock once through the rhythm, okay? We'll go with a medium tempo. And then I'll take a couple more questions, and then I'll kind of jam a little bit and demonstrate more of this chicken picking kind of thing. Here we go. Let's tick-tock the rhythm. A 1, 2, ready, and go, and... C. D. Back to G. One more time. G. C, D, that's G. Question, what is your amp settings on? The amp is just set on the lowest notch it has. It's very low volume right now, and that's it. I would typically be playing my Fender Deluxe, which had an issue with the rectifier tube, I think is what's happening. It just stopped working out of the blue, and my repair guy is not working right now. So I'll check the Deluxe out, but it's got a treble and a bass knob on it. And the treble is usually, you know, because I'm playing a bright sounding guitar, is usually down like between 2 and 3. And the bass is usually between 4 and 5. And that's totally different than it is on my Fender Twin. The Fender Twin, I've got the treble around 4 and the mid-range on 10. And the bass around 4. Every amp is different. This is a Gibson Hawk. It's an old, beat-up looking brown amp from the 60s. And all it has is volume, tone, reverb. I got reverb on there, obviously. You hear the reverb. And the tone knob is all the way down on this amp. This amp is incredibly bright. This is why I don't use it that often. It sounds great, but it is so bright that I've gotten the tone knob completely down on this amp, and my tone knob here is down halfway because the bridge pickup is where you get, you know, this kind of twangy sound. So every amp is different, but I'm just plugged straight in. Okay, so to wrap up this session, I'm going to put on the rhythm track, and I'm going to play this once through, and then I'm just going to jam. Okay, so you can hear some more chicken picking style licks. I'll try to keep it in that style, and draw a little bit of inspiration as to how you could take this and jam on it. Remember, all of you who are Jam Play members can download these tracks, and at all 3 tempos, and you can download the notation, obviously, and go access everything else on the Jam Play site, which is well worth it. Non-members, you don't have those opportunities. So be sure to sign up if you're not signed up yet. One quick more question. Are you releasing the fretted strings just enough to kill the sound when tick-tocking? When tick-tocking, I'm mainly using the picking hand. So in that, right now I'm not muting the fretting hand at all. This is all a palm mute with the picking hand muting the strings. I naturally, just out of habit, kind of deaden the picking hand strings too. The fretting hand strings. But you totally don't have to. It's just kind of one of those things, again, what you get the feel for. The notes will ring a little bit longer, but they're still just as percussive if you simply palm mute. But the notes will go shorter if you give a little help with the left hand. So it just depends on what you're going for. I'm always the guy who's going to give you options. I'm never going to say in some situations there's a definite right and not so right way of doing them, but that one is all a matter of preference. Okay, here we go. I'm going to jam on this Vintage Country solo here, Picking with the Chickens. Okay. Well, there you go. Picking with the chickens. Hope this has turned you on to a style that you'll enjoy and helped clarify some things for those of you who are already chicken pickers. And we'll do part 2 of this next Thursday, same time, 6 p.m. Eastern. And then don't forget Tuesdays, same time, 6 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays. I'm doing classic Americana songs and tunes, and that's more of an acoustic-based series. I'm Tyler Grant for jamplay.com. Thank you. See you soon.